Non-boomers of Reddit, what's your most boomer opinion? PNH Ox said. Or my printer. I was trying to scan something at my mom's house this week, and her printer wouldn't let me log into the program to scan things unless I was connected to the internet. She has internet, but her computer drops the connection every time it goes to sleep, so she has to reboot it all the time. And then it wouldn't let me scan things until I made an account. The printer has spent 100% of its life connected to the computer with a USB cord, and the printer knows it is connected via USB because it told me it was connected via USB. HP, you can fuck right off with these nonsense obstacles you put in the way of people using the device they already paid for. The only reason I need internet and an account to use the software is so you can nag me about signing up for helpful refills of your overpriced ink. And let's not talk about the free printer I got from my dad, which I tried to use to scan something, and which would not let me scan because it was out of ink, and clearly those two functions are entirely dependent on one another and could not possibly function independently. Alvarado 242 said, I'm surprised this isn't higher up on the list. I'll take it one step further and just blanket statement the need to have your whole house connected to the IoT, especially smart locks. What happens if the power goes out while you're not home and battery backup fails? You're locked out. What happens if someone hacks the company like what happened with WD last week? All your data is gone. Or people hacking into your cameras? Just give me my analog appliances, please. Chasing Parallax said, there's too many subscription services for shit. It's nice to have access to unlimited movies and TV, but for the most part I wind up just watching the same sitcom over and over to decompress after work. I wonder how much I could have saved by just getting B99 and King of the Hill box sets instead of paying for Hulu for 4 years. And anything where they mail you a box of curated crap every month is absolutely unnecessary. Toot fucking sweet. Shred Kirin said, absolutely everything is disposable nowadays. Nothing is made to last anymore. If you find something you like, it'll be worn out in a year and probably not made anymore when you want to buy a replacement. It's the absolute worst with clothes and kids' toys. With kids' toys, by giving them such disposable toys, it discourages them from being nice with and taking care of their possessions. Why does it matter when it's going to get worn out so quickly and they'll be bought a replacement? I also think it's a shame that these kids won't have their toys to pass on to their own children because it couldn't last. Fun fact, jeans originally became so popular because of their durability and affordability. They really appealed to the working class man whose clothes were constantly getting worn out and didn't have the money to constantly spend on new clothes. Now if you want a pair of jeans of that quality, it's $60 plus dollars. Edit, while I appreciate all the suggestions on good jeans, I don't actually wear them because I absolutely despise the feeling of denim. I've tried many different pairs of varying brands and qualities, and I just don't like the material. It's a texture thing. Martin Fleib said, communities within neighborhoods would be lovely. My mom talks about it all the time, but it's something I've never experienced myself. We know our neighbors, but that's about it. I'd love to live on a street or in a suburb where people have little get-togethers, street parties for big events, or just generally know and look out for each other on a more meaningful level. Zozie said, I hadn't been in a neighborhood like that since I was a child, until I moved to the neighborhood I am currently in. Parents and kids are all outside together playing. They have regular street get-togethers to celebrate things going on. Tomorrow everyone will be outside as a goodbye party to one of the moving neighbors. Yesterday all the parents got together, brought lawn chairs and water balloons, guns for the kids, and had a water fight. It is so surreal to me because you really never see that anymore. Polly's Walnut said, I was so lucky to have bought a house in a community within our neighborhood. It's a cul-de-sac that's a tree-lined park. One way in, one way out. The kids are always running around, toys left out in the park and on lawns, sidewalk chalk art, constant ring notifications of them playing on my porch, campfires, outdoor movie nights, cookouts, birthday parties, group texts, sharing things from our gardens and food we cook, friends jiving, etc. I moved here with my wife, thinking we'd fill this 4-bedroom house with kids, and we found out we couldn't have any. We just loved the look and feel of this home and street, but the real value is in our neighbors. We had no idea it would be like this until our move-in day. They all came over with food, pies, introduced themselves, etc. Becoming friends with them has been such a blessing, but it's time for us to hand the keys over to a family who needs a place like this, so we're selling soon. Just wanted you to know that places like this do exist, albeit rare. A sustenance said. Speaking as a millennial, this is absolutely a major problem for younger generations, the breakdown of local and geographical social fabric, especially with the pandemic. Once upon a time, your major points of social interaction were with your local community who supported each other as friends and neighbors, feeding each other, social bonds, looking out for each other's loved ones, keeping an eye on the neighborhood, block parties, communal rituals. It's not that that doesn't exist anymore, but I know especially younger people have very little exposure to it as compared to the generation that came up in the middle of the last century. Houses have largely become fortresses of comfortable interiority, rather than communal gathering places, and we lose huge amounts of social cohesion when we lose this. The fact that for many people, inviting someone in the community over and need to feed them and let them have a hot shower is more of a chore than a sense of responsibility is an indicator of this social decline. Local institutions rot on the vine as phones and the internet suck all our energy and attention into national problems over which we have minimal control. I know many young people who have never made a trip to their local library or public park. It's very real and it's happening now, and it's not an okay boomer moment. This is bad. The great Jess said. I hate how literally everything these days has a stupid app that you need to have in order to use it. Everything from kids' toys to freaking cars needs some sort of crappy app these days. Why? What if you plan on having this item for a long while and the app either gets deleted, gets malware, or just doesn't function due to the company not updating it? You would have to throw it out, causing more waste in this world. This is planned obsolescence just disguised as being technologically advanced. Lord Offsint said. Yeah, that's pretty disturbing. That's basically trying to raise a generation of children who are normalized to having something spying on you as far as I'm concerned. It's kind of funny some of the conversations I have with people. I'm a software dev and a bunch of people think I'd be all over that kind of stuff because I must want to be on the bleeding edge. No thanks, I know what they can do with that data. Hell, I don't even really like using the customer punishment loyalty cards at grocery stores. They mine that data. I decided I didn't really care about a corporation knowing what kind of beer I drink, but there's a huge difference between that and having a microphone in my home that is listening to me even when it claims to be off. Massive Flopotic said. Looking at you, Tesla. How about all manufacturers? I rent cars a lot for my work. Every single new one is touchscreen. I hate it. Except Mercedes. It's still a screen, but they have this lovely joystick in the center console. It spins like a knob, pushes into the X and Y axis, up, down, left, right, and pushes inward like a button. No more hovering your hand in the air grabbing at the touchscreen like a drunken ape doing open heart surgery while your eyes are concentrating on the road ahead. It's fucking bliss and every manufacturer should be using it. Emersynthis World said. Same. Was stupid and reckless and hurt my back twice pretty badly as a teen, and again with an unfortunate accident 2 summers ago. Here I am in my mid-20s with the back of retired lifelong manual laborer. If you've never had back pain, it's so damn debilitating a thing to have, and people really don't understand when you're young with it. Imagine making your prom date unhappy when you won't dance and need to sit down, cause you're suddenly paralyzed with pain and on the verge of tears for no apparent reason. I hope technology can give me a metal robotic spine by the time I'm 60. Edit. Holy crap, so many replies from people messing up their backs at a young age. I feel your pain, you all three, quite literally. Alexis Unterwisser said. Going through this right now. Buried my grandfather last Monday and got back to work today. The amount of people who messaged me last week, knowing full well I was away for a funeral, was astonishing. I'm glad I'm leaving this place. Christ. Counterhit said. I also find it really useful, because then the people who are obsessing about whether I am responding to them or ignoring them can clearly see that I have not opened the text messaging app or Snapchat or whatever. They don't have to wonder if I am ignoring them, they can see that I haven't read their message yet. It probably helps that I specifically do not look at messages until I know I have time to respond. This means sometimes I know things a little later than I could have otherwise, but it also means I don't create any misconceptions about my availability or intention to respond. Counterhit Sadaback Pickle said. People are way too overprotective of kids these days. It's making for anxious adults who aren't confident in their own abilities. I grew up underneath a helicopter parent who was way too overprotective. I have to actively force myself to not be that way with my kids. Which, maybe I've swung too far in the opposite direction, but I really want my kids to do things on their own and not be 18 years old on the highway having a panic attack because they don't know what to do with a flat tire. Not my finest moment. I also want to be able to freaking leave my kids in the car for 2 minutes while I step inside the gas station to pay for my gas when the card reader outside is down. To me, it's not worth the damned hassle to get both kids out of the car, herd them inside, make sure they keep their sticky fingers to themselves just to pay for gas. I always end up going to a different station if that's the case. I remember being 8 years old, bored in the grocery store and given my mom's keys to sit in the car and read. Can't do that today. It's child abuse via neglect. Like, come on. I don't do these things, not because it makes my kids safer, but because it lessens the chance that I'll be investigated for something that I don't think is inherently wrong. I sometimes feel like the equivalent of the old lady whining about kids these days. I'll be 33 in a month, BTW. I also find it really useful, because then the people who are obsessing about whether I am responding to them or ignoring them can clearly see that I have not opened the text messaging app or Snapchat or whatever. They don't have to wonder if I am ignoring them, they can see that I haven't read their message yet. It probably helps that I specifically do not look at messages until I know I have time to respond. This means sometimes I know things a little later than I could have otherwise, but it also means I don't create any misconceptions about my availability or intention to respond. User 3241 said, I swear when I was just minding my business a little kid was like, "You're scary." I laughed and said, well, that's not very nice, and then I got yelled at by an angry parent for verbally assaulting her child. Like, on one hand neither me or the child said anything wrong, little kids don't have a filter so it's alright. If you can't handle your child being told, well, that's not very nice, you won't let her develop socially. Royally Forked Up said, like, do none of these people know any single parents? I was raised by a single mom, and I was taught to do a lot of stuff on my own at a young age, because she couldn't be there all the time and my dad was not in the picture. My mom loved me, and did whatever she could for me, but she worked and couldn't afford to pay someone to be there 24/7. So I traveled alone by bus at 9 or 10, stayed home after school by myself, and could cook simple meals. My independence meant I was babysitting and raking in the cash at 12-13, and at working, by choice, in retail at 15-16. As an adult in my mid-30s, I'm the person who keeps calm when shit goes sideways, and there's a good chance I wouldn't be if I hadn't learned to handle shit when I was young. Edit. AWW, my first award. Thanks, kind stranger. Royally Forked Up said, the royally is the important part. Micromanaging is definitely my hot button too. I tend to short-circuit when someone tries, and have yet to learn to deal with heavy-handed micromanaging productively. For another negative, I was pretty arrogant in my earlier years, and I still have to wrestle that part of myself to keep it under control in some situations. As a woman in the male-dominated construction project management industry, any attempt at mansplaining by someone lower in the chain of command on something basic I already know tends to throw me into seek and destroy mode. Maybe instead of crippling anxiety, I got crippling arrogance? Every person said, my mother is the quintessential boomer and an advertiser's wet dream. She will replace household items simply because they're old. She will go through 3 coffee makers in a year because models are always being updated to look cooler. And the old coffee maker? The one that's perfectly fine and works well? Yeah, we'll just throw that out with the trash because she'll be dead sooner than later, and what does she care about the environment? LOL. She's lower middle class, too, and often wonders why she's broke. I'd say your opinion is more of the greatest generation, and it's a good one. Fluffy Samoyed said, I have friends like this. They feel stressed and in a bad spot, so they constantly treat themselves until their bank account is empty. They don't seem to realize that the largest contributor to their stress and unhappiness is the fact that their bank account is empty. It's an ever-perpetuating cycle of them being angry and upset at the world that they don't have money and spending it to make themselves feel better the moment they do. It is very tiring to be around and no amount of logic or reasoning seems to break through. Tarvag means what said. Absolutely no question. There's still good country out there, of course, but they don't play it on the radio, I can tell you that much. It's because everything is composed by fucking music executives now and auto-tuned all the hell. And the only thing people sing about is happy love. The genre, which at its best was all about the suffering and striving of ordinary poor people, has been sanitized and turned into pop with a southern accent. Fucking sucks. Oh, also no one does stories anymore, like ballads, you know. Just something I've noticed. A lot of old country songs tell a story. Most modern pop country ones really don't. If I have to hear fucking I Don't Love You Like I Used to or whatever one more damn time. Nutty04 said. Kids under 12 years old should not have a smartphone or tablet. If they need to call somebody, get them a flip phone and have them memorize their parents' and close contacts' numbers. Edit. I do know that flip phones can memorize numbers. What I am saying is that children should learn to memorize numbers that are close to them in case of emergency. Mark08 said. There's a whole bunch of screw-ups there that all parties should take responsibility for. First, the coach should have confirmed that the kid had a ride on the way at a minimum, and probably should have stayed until everyone was picked up. The parents needed to set up a communication system for their kid to be able to reach them in general. They also should have done something more proactive about picking up their kid. Like damn, you know your kid doesn't have a phone and you haven't established a way to communicate, so you should either be going to those games or at least showing up to the pickup point early. I hesitate to blame the kid, because she clearly hasn't been taught properly how to contact her parents. But if she was in high school, she should have asked for some help from the coach. Dumpling expert said. Deciding to have children with your significant other is a bigger commitment than getting married. I don't understand couples who are in their 30s and decide to have children together but refuse to get married because that's too much of a commitment. It boggles my mind. How does sharing a child for the rest of your life not scare you away but signing a legal paper does freak you out? I have a few acquaintances who are in their mid-30s and in long-term relationships where they've had kids but refuse to get married because they're afraid of getting divorced. MJGRAY19 said. I absolutely despise social media. It's wrecked people's attention spans and it shows. You can't even go to the bar or gym with people without them totally ignoring something you say because they're on their phones checking Instagram or some other pointless trash. And these are the same people saying I'm rude because I don't respond to messages instantly. Take a look in the mirror, lol. Not like I have a life outside of my phone or anything. It's not just the people I know. I see it all the time. I've been cutting down my usage of all social media because now I just think what's the point in this? It's just people I don't give a shit about in real life sharing absolute garbage. I only have Facebook, Twitter and Reddit and can barely stand those three. I go on every now and then but it doesn't last long. Rather spend my time doing something I actually enjoy instead of clicking on random posts to get a quick dopamine hit. Alagunanamenweg said. People take message apps way too personally. Crying over being left on read because someone hasn't responded in a couple of hours is just pathetic. Just because somebody hasn't checked their messages in a day doesn't mean they are ghosting you either. Stop trying to normalize your phone addiction by painting people who aren't as addicted as bad people, or accuse them of neglectful behavior or abandonment. Message apps can be exhausting for some people. Not everyone feels like texting 24/7. If it's a thing that requires immediate response or an emergency, you just call. Phones can do that. Wanker said. The internet is ruining kids' minds, particularly YouTube because of influencers. I'm glad the YouTube I grew up with in 2010 to 2015 was just mostly harmless stuff. Of course people like JStation and other influencers existed but they were nowhere near as big as they are now and were a few years back. Oliverly 2000 said. Stop being on your phone while you are talking to someone. It is so annoying and rude. I feel like people can't even have a conversation that lasts longer than 5 minutes without staring at their phone. As soon as someone starts looking at their phone while having a conversation, I'm not interested in talking to them anymore. Obviously it's totally okay if it's something super important, but some people just want to text with others, watch videos and like photos while talking to you. So disrespectful. Sir 978 said. M29. If the conversation is going to take more than 3-5 texts or emails, just call me. Social media is bad for your health. Social media is not real life. Never take anything said on Twitter, Facebook, or Reddit seriously. Kids these days need to go play outside more. Participation trophies are stupid. This is coming from someone who had a few as a kid. Taxes aren't hard to figure out, especially if you don't own a house. Jon Snow 31391 said, "Doing your own handiwork is rewarding and builds character. I've noticed a lot of younger people's first response to things breaking or needing to be replaced is to hire a repair person or to just buy a new item, without attempting to fix it with their own two hands. Doing it yourself teaches you a skill that you can use to help your friends and family, makes you smarter and more well-rounded, and will also help keep you calm and cool in the face of life's frustrations. When bad things happen, it's not the end of the world. You've fixed things before and you can learn to do it again. I'm not suggesting spending hours and hours trying how to handle your own plumbing or electricity, but if your car makes a weird noise, or your walls need a fresh coat of paint or spackle, you can watch a 5-minute YouTube tutorial and do it yourself.